Welcome to Encore with me, Olivia Salazar-Winspear. Coming up in our weekly music roundup, we check out Bombay Bicycle Club's new album and follow their adventures in a more electro direction. We'll be taking a look at the new generation of Cuban musicians who are taking homegrown hip-hop to a US audience. And the maestro of the spaghetti western, Ennio Morricone, is in concert in Paris. Our music critic, Mariam Saab's here to talk us through it. Hi Mariam, thanks for being with us.
Hello Olivia.
Now we're starting off with some news from the supergroup U2. The band unveiled a new song, Invisible, at the Super Bowl on February 2nd. The American Football Championship draws one of the largest television audiences in the Western world. It's not a bad way to launch a single, Mariam.
Well, no, considering a quarter of the people who tune in do so to look at the ads, but they did it for a good cause. They released this new single to help their favourite organisation, the Red Campaign, which fights AIDS all over the world. And now the track, for the first 24 hours, it was available for download on iTunes for free. And with every download, Bank of America will donate $1 to help the cause. And according to Bono, 7 million lives have already been saved by the Red Campaign. So that's a good one
so
for
he's
me
getting
too.
straight to his audience there. Good move. Now, next, there's no evidence of two-wheeled vehicles here, but Bombay Bicycle Club seem to be getting along fine with drums, guitars and synths. The British group have made a name for themselves in recent years for their mix of folk, pop and now electro. They've just released their fourth album called So Long, See You Tomorrow. We caught up with them to chat about their change of direction and their musical coming of age.
We were playing a lot of concerts and people weren't dancing to our music, even though we felt like the rhythms were interesting and you could dance to them. People were mostly just getting aggressive and using that loud music to get out all their anger, and it was very violent in the crowd, especially in the UK, maybe not in Europe where it's very refined. But we wanted to make a record that people could dance to.
We all stopped listening to guitar music for a little while back, and we're only going to make the music we're interested in making. You know, we're not going to try and make the same album 3 or 5 times in a row. It gets incredibly boring for the listener and the band making it, so we try to keep it fresh.
If anybody wants to know, our love's getting old.
You know, I feel like the style of music is the clothes that you wear, but underneath that you're still the same person, and I think it's the same with our music, because people that have known us for a few years, they'll hear that on the exterior the music sounds slightly different, but within it, they can still get a sense of Bombay Bicycle Club.
If anybody wants to know, our love's getting old. Light in the cracks in the road. You carry me.
So this swerve to a more electro, perhaps commercial sound, is that a trend we're seeing more of among new bands?
Well, we are the laptop generation and it seems we've picked our instrument, but no, I mean, this new exploration of sound is not something that's uncommon. We are seeing it a lot. There are a lot of crossover groups now, artists moving between genres like electro and classic, hip-hop. For example, Kanye West's latest album, Yeezus, has a lot of electronic elements, and just last week we had guests on the show, Wolfgang, who are crossover between electronic and classical. So it's something that we're seeing a lot of. It's certainly, people want to dance, and they're looking for any way to do so.
Yeah, that's what they said. Yeah, good. Okay, so now to a very different kind of music. We're going to Miami now, but by way of Havana. Now, when it comes to the US embargo on Cuban products, music seems to slip through the net. Since Barack Obama restored cultural ties between the two countries 4 years ago, you'll find a Cuban band playing in Miami on any given night. Now that Cubans are allowed to travel more freely, their brand of hip-hop has made a splash in the States. Let's take a look at this report.
When they come on stage, this duo of Cuban rappers does not mince words. Cuba's government banned Los Aldeanos from appearing on radio or TV, but recordings are traded secretly, foiling censors. They've become one of the most popular artists on the island. On stage in Miami, Aldo Rodriguez sings his songs against the system, but this time he's performing out in the open.
What I denounce is what all the Cubans are saying in the street: the lack of public transportation, the lack of basic needs, and the lack of freedom of speech.
For years, the band asked Cuban authorities for an exit permit to travel abroad. Last year, Cuban President Raul Castro abolished the requirement for exit permits, a move welcomed by the exile community.
It's something positive, the fact that the government lets them go out.
Other fans enjoy the show, but they're more skeptical about the real impact of the exchanges between Cuba and the United States.
This is only for show, to calm down the dissidents. There's no real change.
Since lifting the travel ban, nearly 200,000 Cubans have headed abroad, 35% more than in 2012. Nearly half of them haven't come back. Divided between his country and his dreams of liberty, Aldo hasn't decided where to call home.
Now, Cuba's always had a great tradition of music. We think of people like the Buena Vista Social Club. But as for contemporary music, how do you think that's going to develop now that travel's so much more easier?
Well, in theory, it should be easier for Cuban musicians to take the island's music offshore and then bring the rhythms of the world back home. I mean, Cuban music at its core has always been very much about fusion, evolving from influences Caribbean, Latin, European, and as of the early 90s, American. It also means more exposure for groups like Cuban choir Carmeleta Vocales in Nomine, who will kick off their first stateside tour February 15th. But we have to remember that censorship on the island is still widespread, music censorship, and laws haven't relaxed for everyone, especially those in exile. And I'm talking about some pretty big names in music like Grammy Award-winning sax player Paquito de Rivera and Gloria Estefan, who fled the US after the revolution because of her father's ties to Batista. And despite selling 100 million records, she's banned by national radio and has no right of return after a lifetime of speaking out about the Castro regime.
So perhaps things are going to go forward just slowly for this new generation. Well, next, in other music news, the heavy metal group Motley Crue have announced they're officially retiring and that after one final tour, the band will be dissolved. The group also signed a pact banning them from doing a reunion after they've split. Now, despite this contract, this pact they've signed, Mariam, do you really think they won't be lured back for one final comeback tour?
Well, never say never. They are one of the best-selling groups of all time with 100 million albums sold. But let's hear from the band themselves.
For us, we're really proud of our band. We started this band, no one believed in us. No record company would sign us. We figured out, none of us graduated high school, but we figured out how to form a record company. We started talking about, how do we want to go out? We don't want to hobble off into the sunset.
We want to go out with the 4 founding members of Motley Crue and go out on top, and leave a legacy of a band called Motley Crue.
Well, nothing spells the end like a row of tombstones. That was quite dramatic there. But let's remember that folk retirements are not exactly a new thing. Jay-Z, Garth Brooks, Cher, even Frank Sinatra himself had flings with retirement. They do have a new record, a film, and a book coming out this year. So this could all be a little bit of a ploy to get some attention. They have 72 upcoming shows as well, so they need to get those bottoms on those seats. But if this is going to be the last tour, I'm sure it's going to be a wild one.
Oh yes, definitely. Notorious for their bad behaviour, of course. Now next, if you don't know this man's name, you almost certainly know his music. Working with directors like Terrence Malick, Brian De Palma and Sergio Leone, Ennio Morricone has scored some of the most iconic films of the last 50 years, giving the world of cinema some of its best-loved soundtracks. Now, at 93 years old and still going strong, he's giving a concert in Paris. Now, Mariam, Ennio Morricone is often cited as one of the most important living composers. Why does he have this huge reputation?
Well, where would the great Italian westerns of the 60s and 70s be without the sounds of Morricone, much less the hundreds of other films and TV series he's made music for, 60 of which are award-winning. I mean, his body of work is extraordinarily diverse. Classics like Cinema Paradiso, Bugsy, Once Upon a Time in America, TV shows like The Sopranos, The Simpsons. But, you know, let's have a listen now to one of Morricone's classics, the 1968 film Once Upon a Time in the West.
Well, of course, it's soundtracks like that that made his name, but can we expect more of the same at the concert in Paris?
Well, he'll be taking us through his film music, but as well as some of his more obscure experimental contemporary works. Paris is just one stop on the tour to celebrate the 50th anniversary of his film career. For the upcoming dates, he'll be performing with the Budapest Modern Art Orchestra. Next stop after Paris, Prague, followed by Berlin.
Oh, sounds very exciting. Now, we're almost out of time, but we'll leave you with a clip from a new musical opening in New York, and it's inspired by the world's biggest reggae star. Now, Mariam, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, this is a new children's play that features the much-loved music of Bob Marley. It's called Bob Marley's Three Little Birds, and it was actually written by the reggae star's daughter, Sedelia. It'll be opening New York this month around his 69th birthday.
Thank you very much, Mariam.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching at home. Bye for now.